Springfield's Talk 1041. Good Monday morning. Welcome to the show, everyone. My name is Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. If you'd like to text in any thoughts, any questions, feel free to do so at any given time. And we see them. I should mention this more often than I do. We see them when we're in studio. So if you do text them later in the day, then we'll see it, but it may be before the show in the morning, the following morning. And on the weekends, it could be kind of spotty as well. I mean, we have access, of course, to see it at all times, but it's like right here in studio. And so, like I said, feel free if you ever want to text in anything in the afternoon, you have any thoughts, or over the weekends, but we may not see it until the show begins on whatever the next show day will be it any given day of the week, obviously. So 447 KSGF again is that Pyramid Roofing Company text line. If you want to text anything in, there's been some further discussion since Thursday, Friday about who's responsible for the rhetoric, the nasty rhetoric in this country. And Bill Maher, of course, is once again becoming a liberal that other liberals hate, because he points out the obvious. And that is, this stuff with calling Trump Hitler and supporters Nazis. Say what you want about both sides and the rhetoric, but fact of the matter is you don't have MAGA supporters out there running around trying to murder Democrats, using as justification anything Trump says. At the same time, you could feel the pain and angst. Abby Phillips over on CNN. We'll play some of this audio coming up. The Graham Plattner situation that Democrats are dealing with. This is in Maine. Susan Collins, Republican, longtime U.S. Senator there. And you had then a left-wing Democrat throw his hat in the ring, this Plattner guy that has in the past elected to get a Nazi tattoo. He has posted all sorts of things on social media that essentially show him to be what Democrats claim Republicans are, a racist and a misogynist. And in order to try and prevent the left wing from the extreme left wing, the radicalized wing of the Democrat Party, from having a real play in this race, Chuck Schumer recruited the longtime Democrat governor, who's pretty popular in Maine, to run. And the Democrat Party is showing that they are becoming more radicalized, and so they have decided to support the Nazi guy instead. And to the point that the governor's dropped out of the race. So I don't know that there's any circumstance that can come out of this other than the Democrats choosing the Nazi guy with the racist and misogynistic background as their favorite candidate. Abby Phillips brings this up on CNN, and she notes you can just feel the uncomfortable nature in her voice, saying, well, if it were a Republican doing this, we'd probably have a bit of a problem. But of course, it's fine for a Democrat. Geraldo Rivera essentially notes that how convenient for Democrats, and he is a left-wing Democrat, that when Democrats do it, I mean, it's just to beat Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is the worst thing ever, and so if that means running some Nazi, so be it. That's what Democrats have to do. See, it's the broad coalition that they've created. And I don't think it's a positive for the Democrat Party that finally some of these people in the media are at least noting some of this. And on the national stage, it certainly isn't going to help the Democrats regain Congress. When you've got Mamdani running around out there, you've got this Plattner guy, you have the disaster that is Los Angeles and California becoming more in focus as some of these national races or local races rather, are becoming more national in terms of attention being paid. Gavin Newsom also going off on Joe Rogan. Just some of the unhinged nature of the Democrat Party right now, as they are in this primary season, which means they all have to out-radicalize one another, which then alienates them in the general election. And this is just the world. This is the rock and a hard place that they have created for themselves. So we'll touch on some of that. We should have Congressman Burleson with us also this morning. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms likely with a low around 56. For your Tuesday, a 90% chance of showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 66. And taking a look at Wednesday, a 40% chance of showers, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 57.
CNN Abby's Phillips actually asking some hard questions on Graham Plattner. Now, I suppose it depends on your definition of a hard question. To me, these seem like obvious questions. And, the Democrat Party has a Nazi problem. They've got an anti-Semite problem that just, I don't think, came into a greater focus than right after October 7th and the terrorist attacks on Israel, in which you had all of these Democrat activists all across the country protesting against Jews and river to the sea, all of the sort of rhetoric that is used by those who want Israel wiped off the map. And in areas run by Democrats, increasingly Jewish people, that many of which have been traditionally Democrat, are out there noting just the dangerous rhetoric within their own party and how they are shying away from Democrat-run areas, New York City being one of them specifically. And this Senate race in Maine, in which you've got Graham Plattner, and he's a younger Democrat that has since had his Nazi tattoo removed, claims, of course, at one point he didn't know what it meant and he didn't understand and tried to play it off like, well, that's what happens when you go into the military, you become a Nazi, and then post all sorts of things online regarding black people and women. And so this is now the Democrat candidate, given that the so-called moderate Democrat, current governor of Maine, has dropped out of the race. Plattner's the guy. And this is going to put Democrats in this position of either rejecting this guy and his embrace of Nazism and other radical positions, or justify it. Pretend like it's no big deal. Normalize it. And the reason that the traditional, if you will, Democrat current governor dropped out of the race is because the polling indicate that the Democrat voter has already made their decision in Maine. And they've been so radicalized, this is the guy they're rallying around. This is a conversation with Abby Phillips and the panel on CNN regarding his ascension in the Democrat Party. Actually, scratch that, wrong audio. Hold on. Let's see. Here we go. CNN Abby Phillips.
About rape, etc. Do you really think there's a world in which Democrats would be like, let's just let bygones be bygones? That's the past. Today's the present.
I think we're entering a new era, and we'll see what the base wants. We'll see who wins when the actual election happens. But for the past decade, Democrats have been unified by our opposition to Donald Trump. And now Graham Plattner has a forward-looking message. So if Donald Trump or if another Republican had a Nazi tattoo, I don't know, Donald Trump has dinner with Nazis. It's not that far from, happening. But there's also plausible deniability regarding Graham Plattner's tattoo. We don't know if he knew. We don't know what he knew.
But it's not just the tattoo. It's not just the tattoo.
Listen.
That sounds so pragmatic.
If Republicans want to clutch
so
their
ruthlessly, you want to win.
Well, listen,
so you're willing to overlook his Nazi tattoo.
If Republicans want to clutch.
All right, that was Geraldo there in the end saying, oh, how terribly pragmatic. Geraldo, of course, being a left-winger himself. Now, the other comments that Abby Phillips references here were internet postings he made, one regarding black people and discussing how it is that black people are really bad tippers. Why don't they tip? And on Reddit, beginning a quote conversation that he has since, his attempt to justify it is to say he was serious. Now, that's an interesting tact. Many people would try to dismiss it as I was just joking, but his position, at least at the time, was, I genuinely want to know why black people are such bad tippers. I was just trying to learn. Regarding women, specifically rape victims, he has in the past argued on social media postings that women need to start taking responsibility for being raped. And if you're a woman and you're out at the club and you have a few drinks, you're wearing certain sorts of clothing, that this theme, then you need to take a little responsibility for it. And the argument that you hear put forth by Democrats justifying this is, well, because Donald Trump is worse. In fact, the young Democrat strategist there that was defending Graham Plattner and the Democrat Party is that it's worth it to be Donald Trump because our guy is the sort of guy that Donald Trump would have dinner with. Well, Donald Trump, had dinner with a Nazi, so this is your game plan? This is how the Democrat Party is turning into, and in some ways has turned into, what it is today. And how the rage-filled anti-woman, in this case anti-black and anti-Semitic, candidate is evolving the Democrat Party into accepting that sort of behavior because all things are okay as long as it's about beating Donald Trump. And so they normalize this behavior. They normalize these perspectives and reward it. And this is a real moment for Democrat voters out there to determine whether or not they are going to become what the party is becoming, or if they are going to say, you know what, that's not who I am. Doesn't mean that they suddenly change their values and become a Republican, but to support and normalize the argument that women need to take some responsibility for being raped, that black people are really bad tippers, and that's a national conversation we need to have, and getting a Nazi tattoo. Everything about this guy is what they claim Donald Trump is. Everything about this guy they are supporting is what they stereotype conservative Republicans as being. This guy is the guy that Democrats protest against. Their candidate for the Senate is the candidate that they try to scare the average person into believing is the Republican hiding behind, closed doors or right around the corner. And at any given moment, they're going to turn into this or reveal that they are this person that they are supporting. And when presented with this reality, what is the answer? Well, Donald Trump's bad. So is there anyone that you won't support? As long as this person says, I don't like Donald Trump, is that all that it takes? I think that would be an interesting question to pose to some of these individuals that support a Graham Plattner and his background and his rhetoric simply because he is opposed to Donald Trump. What sort of person, what does a person have to do if they are anti-Trump in order for you not to support them? What is a step too far? What if it's an admitted rapist? Are you going to say, well, Donald Trump, he's been accused of rape as well, so, it's okay? Is that what you're going to say? What if it's a convicted child molester? These people on the left out there claiming that Donald Trump is a pedophile, so does that mean that is this really where you are today? You are defined by the person you claim you hate the most, and that's Donald Trump. Apparently, the information that is out there right now about Graham Plattner is not all the information that opposition have on him, that being the Republican Party. And that one source says that once that information drops, Graham Plattner will not only lose the election, but will have to move out of the state of Maine. And it's just about the strategic timing of when the Republican opposition, drops that information. Mark Halperin said Friday on Two Ways, the morning meeting, that an NRSC source tells him the opposition research that they have yet to release on presumed Maine Democrat Senate nominee Graham Plattner is so damaging that he won't just lose the election. Quote, he'll have to leave the state. Plattner, the presumed winner of the Democrat primary, despite reports that he had a Nazi tattoo and history of online comments regarding women and blacks. Halpern said, quote, the NRSC said they're going to get so negative on Plattner. I saw one of the spokespeople say he'll have to leave the state. He won't just lose the race, he'll have to leave Maine. Halpern predicted the timing will be strategic, noting, I assume the RNC will drop some oppo on the eve of the first debate, like that afternoon. And reporters, Susan Collins, and whoever's moderating will say, Mr. Plattner, you wrote, said, and did this thing. Will Plattner will just be saying, I was young and irresponsible. Co-host Kevin Whaling suggested Plattner will say, I just returned from war. I was 22, 23. Those don't reflect my values now, noting that's an insult to the men and women who wear the uniform to say, well, I was in combat. Noting, what is it? What about all the Marines that come back from combat who didn't do or say all of those things that this guy did? And that is an excuse that he's used to some degree, is that the military turned him into this person for a short period of time, but he is no longer that person. But what new opposition research? I mean, this is the thing. If Democrats will promote this guy, given the stuff that he has said already, I don't really think, again, as long as he's against Donald Trump, I don't think there's a thing the guy could have done or said or promoted that would make Democrats reject him at this point. I suppose it'll be those swing voters that make that decision. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani has been hospitalized and is in critical but stable condition. According to a statement posted yesterday on X, Ted Goodman, political strategist who launched a live stream program with Giuliani, posted about the hospitalization on Sunday evening, noting Mayor Rudy Giuliani currently in the hospital where he remains in critical but stable condition. Mayor Giuliani is a fighter who has faced every challenge in his life with unwavering strength, and he's fighting with the same level of strength as we speak. We do ask that you join us in prayer for America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani, he added. And so that appears to be the most recent information on Rudy Giuliani in the hospital, apparently going in yesterday. I'm not sure exactly what caused it. I haven't really seen any confirmed reports on that. But while critical, they say stable condition.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms likely with a low around 56. For your Tuesday, a 90% chance of showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 66. And for Wednesday, a 40% chance of showers, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 57.
Ozarks Elder Law talked with Lori Rook on Friday about the importance of making sure you've got all of that power of attorney stuff set and in place. Once you turn 18, people think elder law. They think that this is something you only need to worry about once you perhaps become a senior, get to the point in which you need someone to take care of you due to the natural progression of old age, when in fact 18 years old, you turn 18, you are your own individual adult. And that means that even if you still live at home, even if you're still in high school, something happens to you, your parents no longer have that same legal authority to make decisions for you that they did the day before you turned 18 years old. And while, let's say you're in some sort of accident, you're in the hospital, and life or death decisions have to be made, while they can defer to the parents should they want to, that doesn't mean that they have to once you turn 18. So if you've got kids, I guess this message is more for parents and grandparents, probably not a lot of 17-year-olds concerning themselves with this right now, which is all the more reason that you need to be the guiding hand in this thing to make sure that they are taken care of in terms of the legal responsibility and those decision-making powers. And it doesn't cost you anything to get a consultation from Ozarks Elder Law. They do not want costs to be a roadblock, and so the consultation for any and all things you need to do to protect yourself, your grandparents, your grandkids, whomever it may be, that is a courtesy, and then they'll let you know, hey, here's what it'll cost to get it all done. 10 area locations for your convenience, ozarkselderlaw.com. Let's see here. Let's switch some of this stuff around. All right. Sorry, changing the order of some things here. So one of the big announcements that came, this is more, this will probably be of interest to some of you, but, Trump had made comments some time ago about having the big UFC fight there at the White House. And, only Donald Trump can not only say something like that, but say it, mean it, and have it done. And Dana White, who is the CEO of UFC, revealed yesterday on My View with Laura Trump that he and President Donald Trump are gearing up to give away tens of thousands of tickets to the first ever planned fight at the White House in honor of both the president's birthday and the country's 250th birthday. White says that his head of production is working on UFC Freedom 250 24/7, a temporary arena that will hold 4,300 spectators will be constructed, and Trump wants to give most of those tickets to military personnel. White also mentioned organizers will give away 85,000 tickets to fans who will be able to watch the fight from the Ellipse. The public park just south of the White House will be set up with huge screens, stages, music, and other audience activities. White said if you are a fan of the UFC, and especially if you've never been to Washington, D.C., we're going to give away nearly 85,000 tickets. Fans can register for the tickets completely free of charge, he said, encouraging ultimate fighting enthusiasts to make the trip. Quote, we're going to be doing all kinds of things, in D.C. for fans, and it's a really cool city. If you're a UFC fan, this is absolutely, positively the time to come to D.C. White said the only thing at this point that could threaten the fight would be lightning, noting that he dislikes outdoor events because they're way too unpredictable. Quote, if it rains, we're going. If it snows, we're going. The only thing that will stop us is lightning, but we're working with the military, he said. The military is set to notify White's team of the weather forecast every hour during the 7 days leading up to the event. Even if lightning strikes, or at least threatens to, the event could be moved earlier or later in the day. Quote, so these are the things we'll be playing with the week of the event, on top of all other things that we'll have going on, which we never had to deal with. The only time I'd ever agreed to an outdoor event was in Abu Dhabi. I could be a weatherman in Abu Dhabi, he said, and I would be right every time. And so it sounds like it's going to be a massive event. The part of this that I'm sure comes to mind for a lot of people is just the increased assassination attempts against Donald Trump. And, what capacity he will be visible at this event. We know when he attends other events of the like events, and he gets an introduction and he's just out in the open. Now, of course, you have security mechanisms in an indoor arena that are much more controlled. I say, than having it just be outdoors. But in addition to that, I think that a concern surely will be just the people in attendance being targeted as well. Because if we've learned anything over the past couple of years, it isn't just Donald Trump that the left hates and wants dead, but they have this seething white-hot rage against people who support Donald Trump. And there's something about these UFC fights that I think people on the left see, and in their minds, it just represents everything that's wrong with humanity, everything that's wrong with Donald Trump. It is the epitome of toxic masculinity, and anyone who wants to attend any sort of event like that, they just have this is hatred for, is the term that I keep going back to because it is unfortunately the most appropriate, and they just cannot control themselves. And to have 85,000 people at an event that culturally is what so many people on the left hate about America, hate about Americans, hate about Donald Trump. And I think a lot of them are going to see it as a real middle finger to the left, because in their minds, that's how this stuff operates. I mean, everything that they do is out of spite, and so they will infer that some of this is being done in order to really stick it to the left. I'm going to be interested also as we get into the midterms to see how it is that the media and how it is that the Democrats critique this. What are their observations going to be? There's a lot to think about here. I don't think it is outside the realm of possibility to imagine some people on the left trying to pretend as if they're Trump supporters and then try and start something. Or show up wearing what they would see as being racist, or something that would be in their mind stereotypical of Donald Trump, and trying to be disruptors. But we know that the left and the media, they really can't help but feel hatred when they see not just Donald Trump pull off something successfully, but see an event in which all of the people that are there are happy to be there, are happy with Trump as president, are all about loving America. You may recall the parade from last year and the dismissive nature of the left, and how the left, it just really seethed them for that sort of display. They compared it to a dictator, and this is what Kim Jong-un does. And so I just suspect, in addition to any sort of concerns that there may be, that Donald Trump could be a target if he makes himself, open and out there, which he's Donald Trump, so he probably will. It's the tens of thousands of Americans that show up that could potentially be a target as well, and just an outdoor venue like that, just the logistics of it to me seem almost an impossibility. All that being said, Trump is noted, as many other Americans have as well. We cannot let the left change who we are. We cannot live in fear because of what the left may do, because that's what they want. They want everyone to give up who doesn't believe like they do, and to go hide away in their homes, and to be afraid to come out and celebrate Donald Trump, one another, celebrate America. And giving in to that is really counter to what this country is about, what the country has been about, and what Donald Trump is about. Now, they don't, at this point, at least this particular story, list where it is that one can request one of the free tickets for the UFC White House event, but with 85,000 of them apparently to be given away. I mean, what an incredible showing that will be. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Joe Rogan recently made comments regarding Governor Newsom, and the governor's press team apparently did not care for it too much. They were responding to a clip of Rogan discussing the 2024 election with Patrick Bet David back in 2023. And so, this is an old clip. For whatever reason, the Newsom people deciding to address it at this point. He is running for president, so it is somewhat relevant. But this is what Rogan had said at the time.
Nobody wants President Newsom either. Nobody believes in that guy. The guy's a con man. I mean, everything he did in California, from trying to mandate vaccines for kids, which was totally unnecessary, to being caught out in public without a mask and lying about the fact that he was outdoors.
Yeah.
All of it. It's just, nobody believes in that guy. He's just a politician. Just a stone-cold, narrative-driven politician. And nobody thinks he's a real human. Whether you like Trump or not, whether you think he's corrupt or not, that's a human being. You know what that guy is. Same thing with RFK Jr. Whether you believe that he's correct about vaccines or whether you believe his policies would be effective, and that's a human being. With Newsom, you've got like this construct, this cardboard cutout of a person.
Now, he has made some more recent comments, and back in October of last year, and this is a pretty funny comment, but it's so absolutely true. He said, quote, he was talking about Newsom again, "You can't ruin a city and then go on to ruin a state and say, guys, that was just practice. Once I get in as president, I'm going to fix it all." Now, the recent posting from Gavin Newsom's press office regarding the audio that you just heard, which again was from 2023, reads as follows, and it's all caps because Gavin Newsom is doing the all caps thing now, believing that if he mimics Donald Trump, people will see him as a tough guy. And he posted, "Joe Little Guy Rogan is too chicken to have me on his failing podcast because he knows I'd crush him. So he takes cheap shots from the peanut gallery and he gets relegated to the irrelevancy. All talk, no action. I'm ready when you are, quote, little guy, or keep hiding." Now, this is exactly the opposite of what anyone should be advising Gavin Newsom to do, for a number of reasons. One, all you're doing is you are drawing attention to what Joe Rogan said. And what Joe Rogan said, it makes sense to a lot of people. Gavin Newsom, of all the things that he can be accused of, being genuine and authentic is not one of them. I mean, what Joe Rogan is saying here is what, I mean, if you are a huge Gavin Newsom fan, of course, you're going to believe he's the greatest thing ever. Most rational people who see someone like Gavin Newsom, the way that he talks, the way he slicks his hair back, the way everything, it just seems he's a caricature of what people don't like about politicians. And he comes off that way. What Joe Rogan was saying back in 2023, and if you notice, his reference point was, he's like, Americans don't want somebody like Gavin Newsom in the White House because of all these things. This wasn't some tremendous insight from Joe Rogan. He was stating the obvious about what people think regarding Gavin Newsom. And so to now respond to a clip from 2023 in which Joe Rogan is saying something that most people are going to hear and go, well, he's not wrong, isn't a great thing to draw attention to. Also, Joe Rogan is known for allowing anyone to come on his show that wants to come on. This idea that Joe Rogan is afraid to have Gavin Newsom on the show, it's just Gavin Newsom's people are doing him absolutely no favors here. I'm not complaining about it. It's just astonishing to me how out of touch these people are with the average American. This complete lack of perspective and understanding what average people think and how they feel is part of the reason that Democrats are having such a difficult time and why they have to rely on, cheating in order to win elections, or trying to imprison political opposition or have them thrown off the ballot, or like out in California, gerrymander to the extent that Gavin Newsom has attempted to do, because they've lost the ability to even understand what it is that the average person in this country thinks. It's one thing to recognize the average person and what they think and to disagree with it, but you can know it. So you know how to play to it. But what you see when it comes to a move like this is it is such a lack of understanding. Like, who is this going to work on? What normal person is going to see this back and forth and believe that Joe Rogan is afraid to have Gavin Newsom on his show? Not to mention, I don't know what his numbers are, but Joe Rogan is just universally seen as one of the top podcasters in the entire world. To try and dismiss him as being irrelevant and having a failing show when you are presiding over a failing state, These folks, the folks that are supposed to be helping Gavin Newsom, if one did not know better, one would genuinely think that they were trying to torpedo his chances of ever even getting across the starting line for this presidential process. It's entertaining to watch, but man, what talk about one cell phone after another. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company on Friday, I was driving through a neighborhood that was impacted pretty heavily by the hailstorm last week. And before I even got into the actual neighborhood, the road was just lined with roofing companies' signs. I mean, one right after another, just different roofing companies. 90% of them I had never even heard of. And that is one thing that Josh has really been warning about, is that a lot of these roofing companies that never even cared about Springfield are all of a sudden taking advantage of the situation, and a lot of them, they just don't have your best interest in mind. Now, we do have rain in the forecast this evening and tomorrow. If you do have hail damage from last week's storm and your roof is not tarped yet, make sure that you reach out to Josh. They offer emergency tarping services. They also offer free roof inspections and discounts on new roof installs for our military and first responders. So if it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, reach out to Josh as soon as possible. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
We're talking about Gavin Newsom and his press office pulling up a podcast of Joe Rogan from back in 2023, noting that nobody really wanted Gavin Newsom in the White House because he's just a cardboard cutout. He's a fake. And he noted Trump, like him, dislike him, RFK Jr., like him, dislike him. These are at least real guys. They're real, and Gavin Newsom's just so fake. And so despite the fact that this was like 3 years ago, Newsom's office decided to post this all caps response to it, calling Rogan too chicken to have me on his failing podcast because he knows I'd crush him, and he went on further from there. But Sarah noted, isn't Gavin Newsom the guy that had a podcast who doesn't any longer? And I think it still exists. I
just looked it up,
yeah,
and it does look like he's had a couple of episodes since then, but...
Well, and so according to Wikipedia, on October 4th of 2025, he had 200,000 subscribers. But then you look at like Joe Rogan's reach, and I mean, it's in the billions in terms of, now you're talking about subscribers versus, the number of downloads and so forth. But
well, on Apple Podcast, Gavin Newsom has a 3-star and Joe Rogan has a 4.5. Which is pretty good in the podcast world.
Well, and so now so Wikipedia has Gavin Newsom at 200,000 subscribers. For YouTube, Joe Rogan has over 20 million subscribers and 6.1 billion total views.
Clearly failing.
Yeah, clearly. Gavin Newsom really does have it going on there. Again, I mean, just an embarrassing self-own. And this comes back to Gavin Newsom recognizing that Donald Trump has a strong connection with millions and millions of people, and so he doesn't know how to do that. So he thinks, well, if I just pick fights with people because that's what Donald Trump does, then that will work for me. But this sort of illustrates the point Joe Rogan was making. This guy's cardboard. He's not authentic, and this is just reinforcing what it is that Joe Rogan was saying.
Arcadia, Edmond Police, along with Oklahoma Highway Patrol.
Springfield's Talk 1041 and good Monday morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com if you need a home loan or maybe refinancing, reverse mortgage, or have any questions about it. I want a great homeloan.com is the place to start. You'll see with the sleekness of what would be considered the quote big guys, the site and its usefulness, but you get the small town values, if you will, and the fact that when you go to iwantagreathomeloan.com, you've got Alex Carricker and Anthony Carricker's name right up there with their cell phone numbers, so you can get a hold of them 7 days a week. I think tells you a lot about who they are, and we get that feedback from a lot of you, and how you're not just some number, you're not just an application in a stack, but these are hometown folks and taking care of one another, and it's why they do what they do. And so if you'd prefer that process and going the extra mile, making sure that customer service is the name of the game, then I highly recommend for just anything, even questions. Like, do you need 20% down? Answer is no, not always. It's not like it used to be once upon a time. I want a great homeloan.com because you do. I saw a poll that was promoted regarding the blame that people lay for gas prices at a peak right now under Donald Trump versus when they peaked under Obama and they peaked under Biden. And how more people blame Trump for the gas prices being high now than people blamed Biden when his policies were responsible for gas prices, and Obama as well. And I thought, well, that makes sense because Trump doesn't deny it. I mean, Trump has been straight up transparent about this. Yeah, it's going to cause gas prices to go up, but once all this is done and taken care of, they're going to plummet. Now, while some may say, well, of course he's going to say that, he does tend to be right about these things. On the flip side, when the tariffs went into place and there was a lot of speculation about what impact that was going to have, I remember, I know many of you do because you were texting in, even as Trump supporters, a little bit panicked because of what the stock market was doing and all of the Democrats and the media portraying it as the Great Depression just around the corner. And what was Trump's message? You ought to be buying now because it's going to go way back up. And of course, he was right. At the time he was saying it, his critics were noting, well, of course he's going to say that. He has to say that. But he turned out to be, he was right. Trump's right about these things. And as far as people's perceptions that this is Donald Trump's price hike, if you will, due to the war in Iran, well, it doesn't surprise me that more people assign those high prices to him, given he hasn't. It's not like Obama. Now, Obama went into office saying, yes, I'm going to have to cause your energy costs to go up in order to get environmental policies in place. But, of course, come election time, Democrats tried to deny the connection. Joe Biden spent so much time blaming everyone under the sun for the increase in gas prices. You had Trump supporters putting Biden stickers on gas pumps with him saying, I did that. Because the administration, along with the media's attempt, and it wasn't just gas, but it was all inflation. Oh, it was transitory. Well, it's not his fault. There's nothing he can do about it. And so when you have the media running cover for you, and you have a political party that is filled with people that never will assign negative responsibility to their political party. In other words, Biden supporters, he could do no wrong. Obama supporters, he could do no wrong. But when Donald Trump has policy in place that results in the temporary increase in gas prices, he's like, yeah, it is going to go up and it's going to be uncomfortable and it's not ideal, but this is what's necessary. And when you do that, well, even your own supporters are going to be like, well, yeah, I mean, he's taking responsibility for it. So it should come as no surprise that polling shows a disproportionate amount of blame or you want to call it blame, but responsibility for the gas prices is reflected in people's perspective on Donald Trump versus when it was Biden and Obama. Look at the weather coming up in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms likely with a low around 56. For your Tuesday, we'll see a 90% chance of showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 66. And for Wednesday, a 40% chance of showers and then mostly cloudy with a high near 57.
Pyramid Roofing Company, text line 447 KSGF. Congressman Burleson joins us this morning. How are you, sir?
Doing good. Good morning.
And good morning to you. I want to start off. We had a happy hour at Vineyard Market. One of our listeners she said, hey, next time you have Congressman Burleson on, will you ask him a question? And she was talking about a farm bill that had come up, and she was looking to see, how everyone voted on it. And I think she said she didn't see your name. And so I said, well, email me the question. And so she had said, wanting to know why there wasn't a vote for you on the farm bill and Luna's glyphosate liability removal amendment, and what's your position on that amendment?
Good question. Okay, so you know my voting record. I rarely ever miss a vote.
Yeah, and this
in the
person
years
knew
that I've
that
been-
too. So I think it's part of her curiosity. She's like, "That's unusual."
So it was tough for me. This last week, I mean, my daughter is graduating, and this was her on Thursday night. It was her last soccer game, or her at being honored, and she was being honored on the field.
Oh,
It's called senior night, where they bring out the parents and you walk your child, and they give them flowers and all this kind of stuff. It's a big moment, after 15 years of playing soccer. It's kind of like honestly a tearjerker moment for a parent who's just sitting, So I told leadership, I can't miss this. This is, I've missed games, so many countless games. I can't miss this moment for my daughter. And I said, so whatever you're going to do, you need to figure it out. Like, I'm leaving. And the truth about it is, Nick, we were not even scheduled to be here last Thursday. We weren't. The entire calendar was not scheduled. So our leadership couldn't get their act together. We ended up having to go in for this last week, and then they couldn't get things in line before Thursday morning. So by Thursday afternoon, I'm like, look, I told you, and I had my flight scheduled, that I'm out of here. And I don't care. I mean, at the end of the day, my family is more important. And you have those gut check moments where you kind of have to ask the question, what's more important? And so, but how I would have voted is on the glyphosate thing is a tough thing, because I personally think that it's good that we're moving in a direction where we're not using so many pesticides. I do think that it's going to get better because robotics and AI is allowing them to use a fraction of the pesticides and herbicides that they once did. But I also am not a big fan of trial attorneys. And to me, that bill was basically a big handout to plaintiffs' attorneys. And so I probably would have voted no on that bill. On the farm bill itself, it has to do probably about what amendments had gotten onto it, because there was some good SNAP reforms that we had garnered in the One Big Beautiful Bill, and by voting on the farm bill, you'd kind of solidified that, put those into play. But other than that, the farm bill is garbage. The farm bill is a lot of big government programs not designed to make the market free. And so that's where I was.
Got it. We are talking about
my vote. The other thing, Nick, my vote would have been inconsequential either way. If anybody's worried about, if I had voted one way or another, either way, me being there would not have changed the outcome of any of these votes.
I want to ask you, because we didn't get a chance to talk last week, and of course more information has come out to some degree about this latest assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And when it very first occurred, people were immediately expressing grave concerns that Secret Service was still a mess. And all I knew at that point was, well, they stopped him. So there was that. That's what they're supposed to do. And so it seemed a little early to pass judgment. But, some things have come out since then, like all these shots fired, not a single one hit the guy. There are just these little tidbits of information that do, I think, give some people pause and concern about, like, man, you just have this image in your mind of how these people should operate, and you think precision, and then you got this shootout, if you will, and the guy doesn't catch a single bullet out of the 6 or 7 that apparently was shot his way, but he fires off one shot and hit. And he, of course, again, he had the element of surprise as an advantage, and I'm sure new information and additional information will come out. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on what we've learned so far about all of that interaction.
Yeah, we had a briefing last week with the Secret Service, and it was the Oversight Committee. They asked everybody to leave the room. They gave just the members of Oversight a briefing. And as a side note, none of the Democrats stayed for the briefing. There was maybe 2 or 3. So that tells you how much they really cared about, getting to the bottom of this. So we got a report, and what was interesting and for me was the dialogue that happened about the shooting, the shots that were fired from Secret Service. And I kind of had this view. I kind of was thinking, well, how did you miss him that many times? And I'm sitting next to Eli Crane, who's a buddy of mine. Do you know who Eli Crane is? He's a member from
I know the name.
Arizona.
Okay, got it.
Eli's a member from Arizona. He's a former Special Forces Navy SEAL. He was on the sniper team with Chris Kyle, actually, the movie that The American Sniper is based on. So Eli served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Needless to say, he's a badass war hero.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, like, what do you think about that? He said, dude, if you watch that video, there's no way that, like, the way that guy was hauling, like, sprinting through there, they didn't pick up on anything until he was already blowing past them. And at that point, you're grabbing your gun, and it's probably too late. He's already gone. And anybody that would have been able to have a clear sight would only have to wait until there's no one behind. Like, you have a clear line of sight with nobody behind him. And so he said, I'm surprised anybody had a clear shot.
Yeah.
But I think, and put yourself in. I've been hunting before a lot, and pheasant hunting, and I think about, because it's kind of you're walking and moving, and you've got these birds and things are active in front of you. You know that there's going to be a bird pop up. You still don't. You still sometimes are really surprised, and the ones that are the closest to you, the ones that go right by you, are typically the ones that you'll shoot at and miss.
Yeah.
Because there's something about that, like, very nearby. You're having to move really quickly and rapidly, and it's typically, it's just harder to hit those things.
Well, and I'm also fully aware of how, and you hear this all the time, people on the left, well, why don't they just shoot the guy in the foot or shoot the gun out of his hand? These absurd suggestions, not about this scenario in particular, but just in any day, in any sort of shooting between law enforcement and a criminal. And they demonstrate a real lack of understanding of how quickly these things occur and how difficult it can be to actually hit a moving target anyhow. And as you noted, when there's all these other people standing around, and so, I'm fully aware that so much of that's in play. And that's just why I wanted to get your thoughts on it, because out of the gate, like I said, people are like, well, they failed again. And my first thought was, it seems kind of like they didn't, because he tried to get to the president, and he didn't even get to the floor that the president was on in the ballroom, and they stopped him pretty much as soon as, maybe reasonably they could have. And I don't know. I didn't know if I was being Pollyannish about it or if I was somewhat in line with what all the information suggested. Now, I want to ask you also, we're talking with Congressman Burleson, and I know I asked you this a couple of weeks ago, but it seems as if there's been another death or two of scientists that have either disappeared or died, and Trump said, hey, there's going to be information that comes out on this before too terribly long. I think since we did last speak with you, you made a posting about another scientist that disappeared or was killed under circumstances that could leave themselves open to questions. And, again, I'm just wondering how many of these are, well, people do die, it happens, and there's lots of scientists out there, and there's a lot of people working on this stuff, versus, how much of this really genuinely does make a thinking person go, wait a minute, something definitely doesn't seem right here.
Yeah. So a few things on that. how this story for me kind of unfolded was, whenever David Grush I started interacting with him, he brought up the name Matthew Sullivan, who was a colleague of his. He was an intelligence officer he was in Air Force, working in Air Force intelligence, then went to work for DARPA, worked for Northrop Grumman, and all in this space of like UFO, UAP, and supposedly was in the legacy program. He was talking about him as a witness coming forward, and then Matthew basically died of an overdose after he'd been scheduled to come in to brief some members as a whistleblower. That was really suspicious. Then when the Office of Inspector General said, this is worth looking into, there's a lot of weird, fishy stuff about his quote-unquote overdose. So I said, okay, well, I'll send a letter to the FBI on this. So that was the first time I had heard of something like this. Then General McCaslin, who was an individual this February, he was an individual who was recently retired from the U.S. Air Force. He was obviously a general in the U.S. Air Force. He oversaw all of these special programs that were doing advanced research, whether it was hypersonic missiles or advanced, like cutting edge propulsion, you name it. He was funding those programs. If anything, he had a nickname. He was called the UFO General. Okay, David Grush had tried to interview him. He sent somebody to interview him, before Grush came to work for me in his investigation on the UAP task force. And General McCaslin really was no help to anybody. He refused to talk about any of that. And he was on my radar as well, and then suddenly he dies. So that's really fishy and sad, or not dies. We don't know. I'm sorry. He disappears. We don't know what happened to him. So it's just kind of frustrating because here's somebody that we eventually could have brought in, could have had some answers for us, and sadly, we're never going to be able to talk to him, potentially. So that kind of got on my radar. And then suddenly, and I mentioned this, I probably tweeted about it, talked about it. Suddenly then the press starts bringing in all of these other scientists. And there were some in the list that are suspiciously connected to McCaslin. That they're working on programs like Monica Reza, who's working on programs that McCaslin was funding, and she was reporting to McCaslin. And then you have other people that were working at Los Alamos Labs that were being funded by McCaslin. So it seemed to be very strange, especially that all of those people connected to McCaslin had a similar story. They walked out of their home, left their devices, and just disappeared. That's something worth looking into. But the press has brought in other scientists, right, that have gone missing or died throughout the last few years. And what I'll say generically is a loss of any of these scientists is a loss to national security. So it's really tragic. For example, there's a gentleman, and his name is Nuno. I always butcher his last name. He was an MIT plasma physicist who was working on cutting edge technology that would allow for nuclear fission. Okay. Right. So nuclear fission is like the holy grail of getting energy and electricity. And he was the guy on the forefront of that kind of research. He was shot on his front porch. It turns out that the guy that shot him was a former colleague of his from grad school who's basically jealous of his work. So is that a really tragic loss? Yes. Does it have anything to do with a scientist that might be kidnapped or something crazy happened? No, but it is weird. Right. Now the last one that kind of the press has brought up is a guy named Matthew Joshua LeBlanc. Okay. Joshua LeBlanc was working on a type of I'm blanking on the propulsion technology, but was working on. It was nuclear propulsion. So nuclear reactor propulsion in space. So this is the type of propulsion that would allow you to go to Mars, because otherwise you can't just burn rocket fuel to Mars. So he was working on that kind of research. He was working in Huntsville, Alabama, and the way in which he died is so weird. He was reported missing by his family earlier that week. They report him finally called the police at 4:30 in the morning, report him as a missing person, and then his car. So they start tracking him. His car is sitting at the airport for just a 4-hour period of time, which is weird. That's too short to fly somewhere and back. Mm-hmm. So what are you doing at the airport, right? And then from the airport, the car is tracked going 2 hours along rural county roads and away from the house, and then it ultimately crashes and then catches fire and burns. And those things burn at thousands of degrees when a Tesla catches fire. Yeah. So that and that is really a weird story. And also he left everything behind. So he left all of his phones and his everything behind. The only thing that he had with him was his car. So that's probably one that is worthy of the FBI getting involved and trying to figure out what happened to this guy. Because I've talked to a lot of people about this, and there's a lot of mysteries. It'll probably be his story is probably going to make for at least a great fiction novel about an assassin, because everybody's speculating that if he was assassinated, the assassin could have taken him to the airport, and then the assassin go to the air, take a plane, program the car to go to drive in this direction and crash.
So, do you think it is your assessment, or even conventional wisdom, that something is going on? That these are not, when you add them up, these are not just a string of random weird disappearances and deaths, that at least with some of them, something's going on here?
I think I'm worried that some of these other deaths that are being pulled into this story are a false flag.
Okay.
That people they're presenting these other scenarios and trying to throw them in the mix so that when they're debunked, it makes the other ones kind of all look. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. Right. So it discredits the whole idea that there's something going on nefarious.
Right.
Interesting.
Now, I think the focus should be General McCasland, because if he's the only person that mysteriously walked out of his home and didn't return, we need to find out what happened with him. He knew way too much. The fact that to me, I know of programs where they have sent entire special forces teams after laptops that went missing, because of the information that was on those laptops.
Right.
And so my thought is, this guy, what he knew about all of our most advanced technology, I can't imagine why you wouldn't go trying to at least verify that there's a body somewhere in the desert, right? Because that's kind of where that's what his wife generally thinks. Walked into or at least what it sounds like. She just thinks that he decided that it's over. But at the end of the day, I mean, whether the guy's in Tijuana drinking margaritas and just like disappearing off the grid, or whether he walked into the desert, I think we've got to figure out what happened to him. There's too much. It's too much out there that's a potential exposure to national security to just go, well, we don't know what happened to the guy.
Congressman Burleson, as always, a pleasure. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, you do the same. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms likely with a low around 56. For your Tuesday, a 90% chance of showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 66. And for Wednesday, a 40% chance of showers, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 57.
Meet the press. Yesterday, the acting attorney general was a guest of host Kirsten Welker, and the subject matter of James Comey being indicted came up. And the seashells. And I think for a lot of people, this whole thing, on one hand, it's so clear what James Comey was suggesting. But at the same time, I think some people don't know that it really rises to the level of holding this individual accountable. What seems to happen here is that you've got this battle line set up on one side. He knew exactly what he was doing. He should be held accountable. And then defenders of his saying, "Oh no, he had no idea what that meant." And I think most people. This guy was the head of the FBI. He specialized in mafia stuff. This is this idea that the head of the FBI that was responsible for dealing with mafia, in which that terminology is standard terminology, and he had no idea. That's a ridiculous notion. That would have been similar to if he had posted Trump needs to swim with the fishes, and then afterwards like, well, no, I just thought that meant, go to a spa and, take a nap in a big pool of fish that clean under your fingernail, just that sort of absurd. Of course you know what it means. You're the head of, if you were someone that had no connection to law enforcement and had no intimate knowledge of terminology used by mafia, then you could perhaps be excused for not knowing that. But this is the part I think that aggravates me the most. It's just this feigned ignorance, this golly gee willikers, I had no idea that's what anyone would think. I'm just a guy. Like, then why did you even take a picture? I mean, we just all know whether it rises to the level of a crime on which he has been indicted by a grand jury. That's a separate question. But can we please not sit around and pretend like he had no clue what he was talking about? Now, the acting director, the acting attorney general, explained to Kirsten Welker that this is more than simply a posting of a picture by the former director of the FBI. And here's the exchange.
Grand jury has indicted the former FBI director for this Instagram post. I want to put it up. I think a lot of folks have seen it at this point. 8647 in Seychelles, which the indictment says, quote, a reasonable recipient who is familiar with the circumstances would interpret as a serious expression of an intent to do harm to the president of the United States. How does that image of Seychelles amount to a serious threat against the president's life?
Well, every case requires an investigation. And what you just showed is one part of that investigation. What you just showed is the Instagram post. Rest assured that the career assistant United States attorneys in North Carolina, the career FBI agents, the career Secret Service agents that investigated this case didn't just look at the Instagram post and walk away. That's why you saw an indictment last week, notwithstanding the fact that it was last May that the post was made. So I am not permitted to get into the details of what the grand jury heard or found, as you know, but rest assured that it's not just the Instagram post that leads somebody to get indicted.
Well, part of what the government would have to prove is intent. James Comey deleted the post the same day, and he wrote, quote, I didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence. It never occurred to me, but I oppose violence of any kind, so I took the post down. How do you prove intent, Mr. Blanche, when Mr. Comey himself said he didn't understand that some people would look at that and think about violence?
You prove intent like you always prove intent. You prove intent with witnesses. You prove intent with documents, with materials. So again, this is not just about a single Instagram post. This is about a body of evidence that the grand jury collected over the series of about 11 months. That evidence was presented to the grand jury. And it's not the government. It's not the Department of Justice. It's not Todd Blanche that returned an indictment against James Comey. It's a grand jury, part of the judicial process. And that this process has to be allowed to play out in the courts. It's not fair to Mr. Comey. It's certainly not fair to the prosecutors for us to be airing your view or my view of this indictment. It's something that will be presented in court at the time set by the judge.
Okay, so it sounds fair to infer from what he's describing there that there's going to be some additional information that's not just the posting. I mean, that's pretty much exactly what he said. This is not about here's the posting that was made and that's why James Comey has been indicted. This is why he should be found guilty. But when it comes to intent, providing information that demonstrates he knew what he was doing, that his statements that he had no clue that this is something that would mean to off someone, to kill someone, what that information is. Just the easy go-to speculation is any of his work that he's done in the FBI regarding the mafia, any sort of communications or emails or discussions, public or otherwise, utilizing that terminology, referencing it in a way that shows he knew exactly what it meant. So, and then you at least hit him in the credibility arena in which he, if you are claiming you had no idea what that meant, and then part of the evidence shows you knew exactly what it meant, then not only have you done harm to your own credibility, but it, to a lot of people, will be perceived as trying to cover up what you knew was wrong. Why would you lie about that unless you knew that you were wrong for doing it? Why would you claim that you had no idea what it meant when we know surely you did know what it meant, which means you knew what you were posting was wrong and perhaps illegal? But again, speculation at this point until all of this information gets provided either through trial or just leaks out to the public. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Springfield Livestock Marketing Center. Since it's Monday, I want to give you an update on some of the sales that are taking place out there this week. Today, starting at 10 a.m., there will be a cow and bull sale. And then on Wednesday at 9 a.m., they will host a feeder sale. Now, if you can't make it out, but you want to attend virtually, they offer live streaming and online bidding as well. And if you're on the seller side of things, the Springfield Livestock, they accept cattle 7 days a week. They have field reps from all the way to Bolivar to Crane and everywhere in between, and they can help just answer any questions that you may have, and they can even help with hauling as well. Now, to check out other upcoming sales or for more information on those field reps, just visit their website, springfieldlivestock.com, and of course, you can find all of the contact information for Springfield Livestock Marketing Center under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
The New York Times had a report on Friday that is going to do nothing other than just add to the murkiness of all things Epstein in claiming that he did leave a suicide note, and it has been under lock and key. A suicide note allegedly written by disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein has been quietly sealed in a New York courthouse for years, the New York Times reported Friday. Epstein's former cellmate, Nicholas Tartaglione, said he discovered the note just weeks after Epstein's death in July of 2019 when Epstein had been found injured and unresponsive in his jail cell, the Times reported. The note, which a federal judge sealed as part of Tartaglione's own criminal case, I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation, allegedly said, quote, "What do you want me to do? Bust out crying? Time to say goodbye." The note has not been released to the public despite repeated calls for transparency on records relating to Epstein. President Trump signed legislation requiring the Department of Justice to publicly release all unredacted files related to Epstein, leading the agency to release 3.5 million pages of documents. Epstein told prison guards in July of 2019 that his cellmate assaulted him and gave him red marks on his neck, according to the Times. Bureau of Prison Records show that a week after the accusation, Epstein told officials that he, quote, never had any issues with his cellmate and felt safe sharing a cell with him. Epstein's cellmate said he found the note tucked inside a graphic novel and gave it to his attorneys in case Epstein continued to claim that he was trying to hurt him. Records state that the cellmate's lawyers authenticated the note, though it does not lay out how. The note was not mentioned in the official investigation surrounding Epstein's death. The timeline of the incident shows that Tartaglione met with his lawyer and informed him that he found the note, according to the New York Times. Lawyers unsuccessfully tried to authenticate the note on 2 separate occasions, though it allegedly was authenticated in late 2019 or early 2020. After his alleged suicide attempt in July of 2019, Epstein was under psychological evaluation at the time of his death, August 10th. Tova Noel and Michael Thomas, the 2 correctional officers on duty, did not perform the required 12 a.m., 3 a.m., and 5 a.m. counts and completed a form falsely saying that they did. 6:33, officers entered Epstein's cell, served him breakfast, found him unresponsive with a noose around his neck, according to the timeline. Dr. Michael Baden, a forensic psychologist, or pathologist rather, hired by Epstein's brother, told Fox and Friends in October of 2019 that Epstein's autopsy was more consistent with homicide strangulation than suicidal hanging. The 66-year-old had 2 fractures on the left and right sides of his larynx and a fracture on the left hyoid bone above the Adam's apple, which they say is consistent with actual strangulation as opposed to a suicide. And so the way this sounds is that his cellmate found the suicide note and he turned it over to his attorney because Epstein had been complaining that this cellmate was trying to harm him, and in an effort of self-preservation, he found the suicide note, gave it to his attorney in case something happened to Epstein and he would not be blamed for it. So a lot of, again, self-preservation in there in the whole scheme of things. Like I said, I mean, a muddy situation made even muddier. Well, Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air as you do your home repairs from the hailstorm last week. Don't forget to check your outdoor AC unit and make sure that your flue for your furnace and your water heater are okay as well. Now, I spoke to Russell last week after the storm, and they've already received quite a few calls for the flue issue. So this is just that friendly reminder to check on those things. If you do have issues, or maybe you just want an extra set of eyes on things, make sure to reach out to Russell and the Foreman Mechanical team. They do repairs and new installs if needed, and they have a 24/7 emergency service line as well. If it is time to have the Foreman team out to your home, schedule your appointment at foremanmechanical.com, or you can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
A couple of things in the upcoming hour, this Spirit Airlines situation, and Elizabeth Warren, one of the leading senators to block the merger that was to take place, preventing Spirit Airlines from going bankrupt. And at the time, they said, listen, if we're not allowed to be purchased, then we're going to go bankrupt. And they weren't allowed to be purchased, and Elizabeth Warren celebrated that. Because it would mean more competition. Well, now, of course, with reality sinking in and Spirit Airlines doing exactly what Spirit Airlines said it was going to do, Elizabeth Warren's complaining about it, which of course. So we'll have that more in the third hour. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041, and good Monday morning, hour 3, everyone. My name's Nick Reed. Podcast, should you miss any of the show, I've got those easily accessible by the app or our website, ksgf.com, Spotify, iTunes as well, any of those locations. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, another weekend. I mean, the weather is just absolutely perfect for that outdoor living if you've got accommodations for it. And like so many people, when we bought our house, we got the nice front lawn, we got the nice back lawn, but, maybe set up some patio furniture on the grass. It just wasn't that inviting until Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. I visited with Daniel Hunter. He's like, well, what do you want? Like, what do you want to be able to do back here? And I was like, honestly, just kind of hang out, maybe have some friends over. I mean, primarily family, but at the same time, if we do have some friends over, I don't want everybody to be crowded. I don't want this little patch of patio area where people feel like they're crowded in together. And so right then and there, drew something out. And also I said, hey, I got a Traeger. I like to make dinner sometimes or lunch on it. And I'd like to have a place for that because I had it in the garage and I'd have to pull it out of the garage and then put it back in the garage. And it just was such a hassle. And then a fire pit, having one of those as well. And so those designs were brought to life by Daniel and his crew, and it really has just altered the entire makeup of how it is that we spend time together, particularly when the weather's nice, and improve the value of the home as well. Not just residential. I mean, if you've got a business and you want outdoor landscaping, hardscaping, lighting done, then Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, these are the folks for you. HunterHardscapes.com. Also, Nick's endorsements, KSGF.com. You can find them there as well. We're going to have a look at the weather coming up in just a moment. Right now, the latest news update. First Alert Forecast sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements from Ozarks First Meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Sunny, a high near 80 today. Tonight, showers, thunderstorms likely, a low around 56. 90% chance of showers, possibly a thunderstorm tomorrow, high near 66. And Wednesday, 40% chance of showers, mostly cloudy, high near 57. Springfield's Talk 104.1. My name is Nick Reed, and we have kind of an announcement, a fun announcement to
It's
make.
a really fun announcement.
We're excited about. We're getting into the race car business, which you can tell by the terminology I use. I'm really well versed in it. David Aust is in with us this morning. You and I have known each other for quite some time now, several years, and I think the first reach out we had to do with racing. That's something that you've been part of, and so we've just been back and forth in about ways that we could be involved. And so we're gonna have the KSGF logo on some of your stuff, and then we're also gonna just follow you and I think on Mondays do an update as to how the previous races went and then the upcoming races just for fun.
Hey, sounds good to
So
me.
all right, so what type of let's pretend I know nothing. What type? Because there's like the drag, there's the roundabout. So what? I mean, for the purposes of people that are listening, and this is the very first they're hearing about it.
Well, for the most part, it's dirt track, oval cars. So we have a pure stock, we have a B mod, and we have a Midwest mod. All of it is turning left.
So as long as you know how to do that,
there's a lot to turn.
Is that
left.
the auditioning?
Yeah.
Yep, he turns left. We had lunch recently, and there was a whole crew of you guys, and I thought maybe you could help me and everyone else understand how all of this works. Because you got a guy who like owns the car, and then you got someone who drives the car. Or you guys have 3 cars, right?
We have 3 cars.
So
yes.
what's all this info? Explain how this breakdown works.
Okay, so we do have my cousin Andy is the one that at the time owned it all. He had all 3 cars. He had the big toter home. He's got the double stacker trailer. He's got the funding for all that. So, but for the most part, he can't drive all of them. He can sometimes, but it's awfully busy. So, me and Steve, and at the time it was just me and Steve racing a Midwest mod.
What's that mean?
Basically, I was a crew chief and he was a driver.
Well, no, what's Midwest mod mean?
It's your entry level mod, open wheel, dirt track car.
Got it.
It's like the entry level versus you have B mods, A mods, and that's like A mods 75,000, B mods 50, 60,000. The Midwest mod, whenever I started, we had a top 5 car. It only cost us $5,000. Well, those days are over.
Yeah. So what's it cost to maintain?
Well,
vehicles.
Fuel is about $10 a gallon, and we go through 10 gallons a night per car. Tires are 180 a piece. Obviously, we have 12 tires.
How often do those have to get replaced? Racing, because you race weekly, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much for each vehicle.
Yeah. Your right rear is taking the most abuse, so you usually go through at least one of those a night.
Oh wow.
Your left front never really does anything.
Okay.
But the other 2 will last a few weeks. So one tire's getting pretty tore up. The other 3 are fine for the most part, unless you hit something.
I mean, obviously this is something that you guys just enjoy doing,
Yes.
but I imagine a subsequent goal is to make money. Is that right, or just to come out even? How does that work?
It's like, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, this.
It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
You're really not making a bunch of money. You're trying to use like sponsors like you guys and other folks to lessen the pain of what we spend. So like, if a car costs us, $50,000, if we run every week, it's only $450. So how much would it take, to pay for our fuel, pay for getting in, pay for eats, pay for to drive that big toter around? For us to take that toter to Springfield back, it's almost $200. So there's another bill.
Right.
There's just a lot of expense.
How many of you are there on your team, I guess?
There's 4 of us.
Okay. Does the team have a name?
Aust Family Racing.
Okay.
And then my uncle's last name is Wharf. So Oss Family Racing plus Wharf.
Okay. All right. And you started a social media page, is that right?
We're starting.
Or you're starting one?
That,
okay,
yes.
Got it. That way we have something to kind of push out as we follow.
Right.
I'm assuming you guys are good. You know, I didn't bother to ask that question whenever we're like, this sounds like a good partnership.
Pretty good. Andy's, I think, raced for over 20 years. My brother's raced for about the same. I think Steve's raced for about 30. But Steve has raced asphalt, all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
And my brother Anthony's raced just dirt cars. And
the race is traditionally the weekend?
Yes.
And then you traditionally do all three different places, or they race the same?
No, we usually try to pull those in the same place each time we go. Anthony in the Pure Stock really wants to stay in Springfield, and he wants to do that weekly. So we're going to do that a lot, but wherever we go, he's going to come too.
So are there weekly Springfield races?
Yes.
So what causes you then to race elsewhere on another weekend?
Really, we just don't like going to the same place all the time.
Oh, okay.
We like different
variety.
Yeah, and like tracks are bigger, right? Like Monette's a 3/8 mile. Springfield's quarter mile. And we like to move around. I mean, every track needs our help. So Springfield is a good track. He's got a lot of cars that come there because he's got such a big area of folks to deal with. Some of the other ones are struggling. I mean, Monette's struggling.
Really?
Well, we're not teaching good gearhead stuff in school anymore. Everybody wants to play on their phones and play video games and stuff, not get out there and do anything. So we've tried to really push things for kids because once you get the kid, you can pull the parents in with it. Yeah. And there is some entry-level stuff that kids can, get involved with and come to the races because everybody likes to give kids stuff. Stickers, shirts, hats,
Well, it's a fun, like I said, I don't really know a lot about it. I've been to a number of them, and to me, it's this sort of activity that you don't have to necessarily know a lot about to still enjoy it. Mm-hmm. That's part of my experience, and I thought this would be kind of a fun little partnership. And our listeners like experiences, and maybe some of them have never even thought about attending because they don't really know much about them, where they are, and this would be an opportunity for us to get them in the loop on it. Now, how do you all? Do you do rankings? Is it a season? Most sports, you start out, and then as you go along, you have a way to gauge yourself compared to other teams. Right. How does that work?
Well, usually, if you want to really gauge yourself and go that route, you want to get in a points championship type thing, you'll go to one racetrack forever. So you'll get points every week, passing points every week, and that adds up through the year, and it keeps you ranking.
So is every ranking isolated to a track then? Is that how that works?
For the most part, yes. But that takes a lot of the fun out of it. Mm-hmm. Like my cousin, I grew up in it, right? So I was born on a Friday, and I was at the racetrack on Saturday. So, I mean, I've been around it a long time. And my cousin always said, you know how to have fun at the racetrack? I was like, what? He goes, forget the first week. Take points out of it. Now it's just fun.
Okay.
But there was times where he was track champion, all kinds of other stuff too. So that's, and we just go everywhere and gauge ourselves with how we finish.
Upcoming race this weekend.
We're not going to race this weekend. Okay. We kind of took a crash this past weekend.
Oh, the fans seemingly they like to see crashes, but that's not. I mean, that's costly.
Yes, everything costs money. So this past weekend we did have a little bit of a fender bender, but it all, we like to have fun. We like to poke fun at each other.
Okay,
right?
Sure.
So Andy went out for his heat race and was leading by a wide margin. Comes out of turn, gets the white flag. All we have to do is get the checkered right. Comes out of turn 2 and starts spitting and sputtering. Still won the race, but spitting and sputtering. So he comes in, he's, I wouldn't say frustrated, but we're all just like, what?
Right.
And the whole cliche, I know what's wrong with it. Ain't got no gas in it.
And that was it?
And it was it.
No kidding.
Run out of gas. So out of everything we do and look at and check, one thing we missed: fuel.
Well, I guess lesson for next time. So a couple of weeks, then you'll be
a
okay.
couple of weeks. We're going to come to Springfield.
All right.
And then after that, we'll probably just head around. We like racing in a lot of different places.
So, do you guys have tailgating ahead of time? If our listeners,
yes.
Okay, so if our listeners they decide, hey, we're going to go check one of these out. How do they find you guys? I mean, is there?
Well, one, you can follow us whenever we get our social media going, but you're gonna have to go on the pit side of it, so it's gonna cost you a little more.
Okay.
Really, racing on a weekly basis is probably your cheapest route, as in a spectator, to go with friendly, fun atmosphere. Very patriotic, very Christian folks, want to have fun. Not a whole lot of bull crap going on.
Yeah.
You know?
What is the average cost? And then for the pit side?
For the spectator, it's like $10. For the pit side, it's $40. So your regular family can go to a race and watch and probably spend less than $100.
Yeah.
Versus going to a football game and spending $1,000.
How long does one usually last?
About 6 to midnight, about 6 hours.
Okay. All right. Anything you can think of to ask over there, Sarah?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, we'll make sure to, like I said, get once you have the social media up and running, so we can direct people over towards it, and then just on. Of course, we won't have it this next Monday, but we can get from you how the races went, let everyone know, and then let them know about the next one, and cost and times and location. Which it sounds like a lot of them would be Springfield, which would be pretty convenient. Is there anything I'm not thinking of that you want to mention?
We just have sponsors out there
Yeah.
that we'd really like to push out that actually help us with this, because without them we can't do it. Cindy Beck at Keller Williams here in Springfield helps us out a bunch this year. She's new, like you guys are to us this year. She's your buyer agent. Really has a heart service. That's one. Osco Tree Service is another one. He's out of Mount Vernon. He's been doing it for 20 years. Does a really good job. Has his own website, oscotreeservice.com. Very good guy. Does us this good job. And we got a few others, but I don't want to bore everybody.
Right, go through the full list. Well,
I'll just talk each time I come on. I'll just talk one or two of them and give them a shout out.
Well, I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a fun new thing for us to do, and we do a lot with the symphony, and we do a lot with other venues, and I kind of try to, I don't know, we spread them out culturally. Maybe some people that aren't necessarily symphony people, they'll be more racetrack people, and vice versa, and maybe someone the same. So appreciate you letting us be part of the. Do I get to say we're part of the team?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you guys are part of the team. Come on out
All
whenever.
right. Excellent. Good.
You're going to have to change tires now.
Yeah, I didn't know I was going to have to actually do anything out here. Have me washing and wax. And David Oss, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And we look forward to weekly updates on how you guys are doing.
All right, thank
Pressure's
you.
really on now.
Right, now we get to tell everybody.
It's Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Streaming live, KSGF.com. Also YouTube. You can find us there. Springfield's Talk 1041. Elizabeth Warren, one of a number of Democrats that really bragged about preventing this merger that was requested several years ago during the Biden administration regarding Spirit Airlines. And Spirit Airlines had said, hey, listen, we are going to go bankrupt if we are not allowed to have this merger. We just are not going to be able to survive it. And there were a number of Democrats that were very against it at the time. Elizabeth Warren was one of them, touting at the time the decision to kill the merger as a huge win for consumers, and warned that the deal would have led to fewer flights and higher fares. And she wasn't the only Democrat that was warning against this merger with JetBlue. And she had posted on March 6th of 2024, I've warned for months that a JetBlue Spirit Airlines merger would have led to fewer flights and higher fares at Justice ATR and USDOT, and we're right to stand up for consumers and fight against runaway airline consolidation. This is a Biden win for flyers. That, again, Elizabeth Warren on March 6th of 2024. Now, again, the reason that Spirit Airlines needed this merger is financially. They said, we will go bankrupt. We will cease to exist if we're not allowed to do this. And the Democrats, led by the likes of Elizabeth Warren, fighting against it, and eventually the decision made to not allow them. And so what Spirit Airlines said was going to happen actually did occur. And that is they've closed up shop. This was a big news item over the weekend. And Elizabeth Warren's post on this announcement is, quote, the big four airlines, American, Delta, Southwest, United, control 75% of the U.S. market. Fewer choices equal higher prices for you. So now she's, complaining about the results of what she and others pushed for. And that was blocking the lifeline for Spirit Airlines. Arguing, and this is just so perfect, typical pro-government perspective. The very thing they claimed that they were standing for and fighting for turned out to be, or fighting against rather, turned out to be exactly what happened. And claiming that if that merger occurred, then there would be less airlines. And so we have to prevent it from occurring. Well, now there's less airlines because of it. And the declaration that blocking the merger was a win for flyers, the result now, Elizabeth Warren is declaring a disaster for flyers because fewer choices mean higher prices and less options for consumers. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 80. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms likely with a low around 56. For your Tuesday, a 90% chance of showers and possibly a thunderstorm with a high near 66. And for Wednesday, a 40% chance of showers, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 57.
I wanted to play some audio regarding the announcement by Spirit Airlines and Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. He and Duffy of Transportation have both noted that this was seen coming. This was what the Biden administration was told, and the likes of Elizabeth Warren would occur if they were successful in making sure that the merger with JetBlue did not occur. And Bessent talking about that over the weekend.
The Democrats did not want Spirit to merge with JetBlue a year ago, and now we see that Spirit Airlines closed operations. The Treasury was supposed to be doing a deal to save this company. Can you tell us what happened?
Sure, Maria. So this is just more of the mess we inherited from the Biden administration. In September 2022, Elizabeth Warren, who loves to write letters, sent a letter to the Justice Department, to the Transport Department, saying that they should oppose the merger with Spirit Airlines. JetBlue wanted to buy them for $3.8 billion. It would have given them much more resiliency. And she and the Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg was probably the worst transportation secretary in history when he came to the office. They were against the merger, and if JetBlue had merged with Spirit, we would have all these jobs that were lost yesterday. We had 30 regional airports who have lost service. And I can tell you what happened here. It wasn't Treasury, it was Commerce that was trying to put something together. But the reason we were here was because the Biden administration opposed the merger. We shouldn't have been here in the first place.
Now, I'm sure if this gets much traction, as many people on the right will try and make sure that it does, so people understand the implications of people like Elizabeth Warren meddling in these affairs and torpedoing entire companies. And you think about all the people that are out of jobs, all of the people that are now worried about where their next paycheck's going to come from. It was this effort that has led to that occurring. And as it was noted here, there was an attempt, or I don't know to what degree, from, as he noted, the Commerce Department to cobble together some sort of plan in order to save them. Frankly, that's not a good idea either, because the government should not be destroying businesses, and the government should not be in the business of trying to save businesses. And you can only imagine that should the Elizabeth Warrens and the Pete Buttigiegs, who, of course, he's running for the presidency, and I suspect Elizabeth Warren's going to throw her hat in the ring once again as well, that they will blame the Trump administration for not fixing the catastrophic problem that they created in the first place. The arrogance of these people and the stubbornness of refusing to allow successes to occur, and all in the name of the consumer, which ultimately leads in the consumer suffering, as is this case, and middle class Americans. I go back to the quote that Clarence Thomas once made, and that was regarding socialism and how the big problem with it is you have these people that get in office and they experiment with people's lives, and people suffer from it. And while one can argue whether this is actually a form of socialism or just a form of government interference, the problem is the same, and that is taking what should be a free market system and the ability of one company to purchase another when there are numerous different air carriers out there. I don't think just the numbers themselves JetBlue acquiring Spirit Airlines was going to change the landscape for the worse, because we, in fact, know that it has changed it for the worse for the consumer and for those employees, given the merger was blocked by Democrats. And these are actual people who lost their jobs. These are individuals that otherwise, in all likelihood, would still not only be employed, but perhaps in even better position than they were in before because of the solidifying of the company itself with that merger. You can dog on companies all you want. You can blast companies for being run by really greedy people. But the reality is, it oftentimes are those very companies that are putting food on the table for average Americans. And when you go after them, either in terms of mergers or you go after them by way of taxes or regulations, it is the average guy, the average gal that ends up suffering. There's a follow-up story, switching gears here, but just this Democrat approach of punishing people who are successful. We talked last week about the co-founder of Google, Sergey Brin, and his leaving of California because of this potential billionaire tax act. And leaving not solely because of the confiscation of his private property, should this vote go through, but the fact that his family fled this form of government. And it was the Soviet Union. And he noted, listen, my family fled this stuff. Why am I going to stay in a state that's run by people similar to the way that the Soviet Union was ran when we left everything behind in order to escape it? There is a story out there that back in December, Newsom and Sergey Brin attended the same, quote, treehouse party hosted by crypto investor Chris Larson. It was there, according to a Bloomberg report, that Brin broke the news that he was going to be leaving California because of this proposed wealth tax. According to the report, it was a tense private confrontation so jarring that Gavin Newsom reportedly complained about a, quote, lingering cold he attributed to the interaction for months afterwards. Brin allegedly explicitly cited the Billionaire Tax Act, a 5% one-time excise tax on individuals with a net worth exceeding $1 billion, hitting his nearly $289 billion net worth significantly. And just this past week, the Service Employees International Union, United Healthcare Workers West, said it collected more than 1.55 million signatures, according to a press release, nearly double the requirement to put the one-time tax on billionaire assets on the California ballot this November. Now, there's a couple of components to this. One, the fact that a person like Gavin Newsom, how these high-profile Democrats seemingly get caught off guard when people that are being put on notice, hey, we're going to let people to vote whether to take away your private property or not just because we want it. And then those people get upset by it. And how it is that you have these high-profile Democrats, and I suppose some of these CEOs that are on the left, they've earned this to some degree, because you could tell that whenever there is some sort of backlash, oftentimes they're just taken aback by it. I mean, Gavin Newsom, to you and me, this would be the normal sort of outcome. If your political party is utilizing the vote of the people to single out other people for the purposes of taking some of their private property from them, most normal people would say, yeah, that would tick me off. I would not stay in a state like that. Why would I? And the fact that there's this report out there in Bloomberg that when Gavin Newsom was informed of this, he was just like shocked and beside himself, and he just couldn't, just almost indignant at this. But you think about the concept of this, and whenever Sergey Brin notes that they fled the Soviet Union to get away from this sort of thing, that is not an exaggeration. This isn't about a percentage of taxes that a person pays on their income. This is allowing people to vote on another specific group of people to just take some of what they already have. This isn't about future earnings. This is just arbitrarily saying this group of citizens over here, if they have this much money, let's all just vote as to whether or not we can take that away from them, whether they like it or not. That is a Soviet Union concept. That is a Venezuelan concept. That is a Cuba concept. That is the concept of failed third world countries. And then to turn it around and to portray the successful citizens who don't want these random, arbitrary votes to take place that just pick how much of their own, their assets they're going to take, their wealth that they're going to take, as if they are the ones doing something wrong, as if they are the greedy ones because they don't want to be part of that environment. When you live in a country like the Soviet Union, or like it was, you can understand how it is that people oftentimes don't leave because the government makes it very difficult to leave. Increasingly, a lot of people who are successful or even want to live middle-class lives have realized it doesn't take nearly as much to cross from California, hopscotch over a few states, and land in Texas, Tennessee, or Florida, and that's why we continue to see that U-Haul effect. It's anecdotal, but a couple of weeks ago when I was driving down through Texas, you saw U-Hauls everywhere. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. All right, there is a report out there, and this is not by accident. This is very purposeful. Axios has a story scoop. Shapiro boosted Republican to retaliate against fellow Dem ally, says in a recording. And the report reads that Bob Brooks, the Shapiro-backed candidate for the U.S. House, made the surprising comment Wednesday to a small group of Democrat college students, and Axios obtained a recording of the remarks in which these accusations that Shapiro secretly helped a Republican state treasurer's 2024 reelection bid after the official's Democratic opponent had criticized Shapiro as a potential VP pick, a close Shapiro ally said this week. So the idea here is that when Shapiro was on the short list for the VP and he was criticized by the pick, the idea was criticized by some. One of the individuals that criticized that was a Democrat running for treasurer. And so Shapiro secretly helped the Republican in order to get back at this individual. This is about destroying Shapiro early. And what is remarkable about what Democrats are doing is this self-sabotage of the state of Pennsylvania is just an insane thing to watch play out. And the only people, I think, in the Democrat Party who are aware of what is going on slowly but surely get eliminated from the Democrat Party, and John Fetterman is one of those individuals. Now, for Shapiro, his sin is he's Jewish. This is the problem that the Democrat Party has with him. He oftentimes, there was an attempt to burn down the governor's mansion, and when the left tries to create this false narrative that the violence is on both sides, they will use Shapiro as a Democrat victim as evidence, not noting the fact that it was a left-wing activist that was anti-Semitic, and that's why they tried to burn down the governor's mansion. At the same time, Fetterman is getting not only zero help from the Democrat Party in what is going to be a re-election bid, but they are actively seeking to have him thrown out. And of all of the Democrats in the Senate, Fetterman, the U.S. Senator, who has a severe or had a severe stroke, is the one that most clearly recognizes the landscape here, and has noted the fact that the reason that a Democrat holds that seat, that being him, is because he's moderate. That in Pennsylvania, you have to be somebody like a Shapiro, who is, he's pretty left-wing in some areas, but compared to the new direction of the Democrat Party, he's more of a moderate guy. Fetterman, he votes with Democrats the vast majority of the time. His sin is he doesn't put a target on the back of his political opposition by calling them Nazis, by calling Trump Hitler, and in fact has argued that that's not what Nazis look like. That's not what Hitler looks like. Donald Trump is not Hitler, and we have to stop this stuff. In other words, he's a reasonable person. And a state that has been considered a blue state and then arguably a little bit purple, and the only really high-profile successful Democrats or successful races that the Democrats have had in Pennsylvania are the type of Democrats that the new Democrat Party is doing everything they can to get rid of. And Fetterman noted, you replace me with somebody to the left of me, and this seat goes right back to a Republican. And he's absolutely right. This is the period of time in which the real extremism in the Democrat Party is going to rear its ugly head, because Democrats have to shift to the left in order to win these primaries, particularly when we're looking at the upcoming presidential election. And Shapiro is one that many people believe would actually have a shot in the general election, but the Democrats will never, ever, ever let somebody who's Jewish, in at least the modern era, they may in generations change who they are, but there's no way they are going to let a Jewish person get the Democrat nominee or nomination. Will not happen. And so the fact that there are already stories being leaked out there that actually, look what he does, he tries to help Republicans to punish the Democrat Party. This is very targeted, it's very specific, and it's very meaningful. And that's to get him out early so as to not have to deal with him later. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. You want the absolute best? Boom. You got Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, and you may be one that wants to buy just lots and lots of land, have that lake life out there in the middle of nowhere. And sometimes that takes an area of expertise that's a little more focused. You're talking about all of the infrastructure that can come along with that. And that's where her husband has his expertise, is in those big land buys and big land living. And so because of the recognition that buying a home and what to look for is different in your average neighborhood than it is out there on 1,200 acres with a couple of lakes and a pond and so forth. And that's why you've got the best of both worlds, and the benefit of House Theory Realty is because, be it out or be it in a neighborhood with the white picket fence, you are 100% covered with Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. And you can always, if you forget, I know it's Emily something or what, it's something realty, house something realty, just go to ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements, and you shall find all of her contact information there. A man running for the U.S. Senate seat in Pennsylvania, talking about targeting Fetterman, has been arrested for leaving voicemails threatening President Donald Trump and the family of an unnamed member of Congress. Raymond Eugene Chandler III has been charged with influencing, impeding, or retaliating against a federal official by threatening a family member and influencing, impeding, or retaliating against a federal officer by threat, according to an unsealed affidavit from May 1st. One voicemail message Chandler allegedly sent to the unnamed member of Congress graphically depicts a scenario Chandler hoped the congressman would imagine, where wealth protesters have surrounded his home before, quote, they slit your throat, and they slit your daughter's throat, and then they slit everyone's throat. Authorities said Chandler left a second message to the congressman saying, you're probably getting quite used to my voice, sir. I'm calling this evening because I want you to do, or what I want you to do is to take a firearm. I want you to put it in your hand. I want you to walk into the Oval Office, and I want you to put that firearm to the president's head. I want you to pull the trigger, and I want you to kill him, along with other threats from that Democrat candidate for Congress. And then in Wisconsin, a transgender socialist Wisconsin congressional candidate deletes gun range video shooting a target of President Trump. This is an individual by the name of Cooper, who identifies, I think, as a lesbian female, though is a man running as a Democrat socialist, and as you can imagine, getting a little bit of backlash for depicting the murder of President Donald Trump. Even a number of the Democrats have seen this as a way to force this person out of the race, though the candidate is pushing back. So just some of the latest campaign news out there on the Democrat side of the aisle. Glenn Beck's coming up next. I'm Nick Reed.